Hello everyone, welcome to today's Q&A, Pickup Vectorworks Landmark. This is a Q&A with CAD Guru Jonathan Pickup. So thanks for joining us for this special Q&A. Jonathan is trained as an architect with more than 30 years of experience, and he has been writing and producing Vectorworks manuals and providing customer support for more than 20 years. His company, ArchonCAD, is the premier provider of third-party manuals and training resources for Vectorworks. He offers monthly webinars for Vectorworks and maintains the Visual Knowledgebase for Vectorworks. Jonathan, as he said, joins us from New Zealand. And let me tell you a little bit about Noveg. And here's a limited time promo we are offering now. So you can, as you know, Vectorworks 2021 is coming, and we want to make sure you're aware that if you buy or upgrade to Vectorworks 2020 now, you will have automatically the update to 2021 for free as soon as it's released, sometimes in September. So check it out at noveg.com. Noveg is changing the way designers purchase 3D software, and we offer more choices, more freedom, best advice, and faster service. And now, without further ado, I'm going to give both the screen and the word to Jonathan so he can start answering your question.
Thank you, Barbara. So we've got one question. Thank goodness we got one question. So guys, if you would like to know something, don't forget to use the question pane on the GoToMeeting control panel so that you can post your question. I'm willing to wait a little bit while you sort of write your questions. Sometimes they're kind of long. So just while we're doing that, just let me remind you, I run the knowledge base. Richard, I know that you use this quite a lot to go through. Ashot, I think you're also a subscriber. There's loads of information on here. I've built this so that it's really quick to answer questions, and every month we have these dedicated webinars. I've got one for Landmark. We've got one coming up next week for Landmark. Yesterday we had one for getting started. And so I have these focused online webinars for people. Unfortunately, it's a pay service, but if you don't want to pay, don't forget to check out my YouTube channel. There's quite a popular movie, A Quick Start to Vectorworks 2019. It goes through setting up your page and the basics of 3D modeling. And as you can see, it's reasonably popular. So have a look at that. There's a whole set of them. If you have a look, there's a whole set of these YouTube movies that you can watch. Getting started on a working plane, how to draw a small project. It looks like a very small project, but it actually covers enough for you to understand the basic concept of drawing a building in Vectorworks. So let's get into Vectorworks. So I do have a question, which is about houses that integrate the landscape and have varied features like wine cellars, etc. So how do we handle that kind of stuff? So what I'm going to do is I've got a file here that's got plants. I got this already for you. But what I'd like to do is delete everything and just have my site model. Let's get rid of everything else. And I'll just have my site model on here. It's got some massing models, which I'm going to delete. And don't forget, if you need to delete a lot of things, you can use the Select Similar tool. The Select Similar tool, I've got it set so it finds things by their object and their class. So I click on a massing model, it chooses all of them. It's really quick to get rid of those things. If I click on this, it'll pick up all of my site modifiers together, and I can delete all those. Here it'll pick up all my plants. So it's picking up all the objects that I want to get rid of. And now if I update my site model, update down the bottom there, we should see that it's a site model without any modifiers, I hope. Is it updating? Yeah, it's updating. So it's just thinking about that for a little bit. So the speed at which your site model will create or generate is based on the amount of information you give it, what kind of polylines you give it, what kind of things you give it. So Scott, what I'm going to do with this, I was hoping this wouldn't take quite as long as that. So what I'm going to do, Scott, I'm going to have a look at the basics of site modifiers. Now you can make any 3D object, just about, I should say. You can make any 3D polygon into a site modifier if you put on the right layer. Sorry, if you put on the right class. So that's easy enough to do. I wonder why this is doing that. Doesn't normally take this long. I wonder, Barbara, whether I might have to restart Vectorworks.
Okay.
It's not normally, doesn't normally take so long as this. And of course, once you start updating a site model, you just have to put up with it. Richard said that he'd like to see again the various site modifier modes, especially when you use retaining edge. Just now doing site models for my project, and I've sometimes trouble with a basement and a fill. So I just better bring the questions up so I can see them again. Yeah, so if this doesn't stop, I don't know how to, I don't think there's any way I can interrupt the site model. So I'm just gonna, if you just pause the movie temporarily, Barbara, I'm just gonna restart Vectorworks.
Okay, no problem. So you guys can have some time to come up with more questions. And
yeah, we've got another question from Richard. Richard would like to see the various site modifier modes again, especially when you use the retaining edge. So that's a good one. So there are other people, if there's something you want me to show you, please write a question. If you're having trouble finding the questions, it's on the GoToWebinar control pane. You just type your question out and hit the submit, or click on the enter button probably, and it should go in there.
yeah, this is a great chance for a one-on-one, interaction with Jonathan. His time is really precious, and his knowledge is.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a site model from scratch, and I'm going to use polylines to do this. Let's create some polylines. So I'm just going to make a rather ordinary site model. And it won't have too many points in it, so it won't take too long to create. So one of the easy ways to create it, I don't know if anyone noticed, but I started with this. Oh, sorry, do you want to start recording again, Barbara?
Yes, we're going.
Sorry. So I started with a few basic polygons here. So let's have a look under Landmark. There's a thing called 2D polys to 3D source data. These assume that you've started your polys at the lowest level, and I have. So my start elevation is 16 meters. My interval is 2 meters apart. Should we make this 30 feet? I think nearly all of you are American. So 30 feet apart, 6 feet apart, and I'm going to create 3D loci. And it finds the first one, great. Yes, it only found the first one. Weird. Let's do that one again. So survey input, 2D polys. Where's it gone? It should find all of them. So what was it? That should have been 36 feet with 6 feet apart. That's better. Okay, and let's delete my originals. So I should have a lot of 3D locus points around. Let's select them all. And then they all are. So we select all of those, then we can make a site model. So Landmark, create site model, and create site model from my source data. There it is, and my general display, maximum elevation, minimum elevation. Do check these maximums and minimums to make sure that you have got all of your points and you haven't got one at 0 when you don't need it. So these are going to be 2 feet apart, and the contour is going to be 2. Now I'm just going to change my units to feet and inches. Document settings, units, and we'll change these to feet and inches. I better change this to square feet, cubic yards. Okay. So there's my site model. It's reasonably steep, so it's steep enough to do some of the stuff. So first of all, Scott, your first challenge, getting the, being able to use this to cut in something like a wine cellar. So let's say, for example, there's our house. Should we just draw a house there? There's our house. what do? We want to put in a wine cellar somewhere. Now, there's a couple of ways to do it. One way to do it might be to use something like the, where is it? Where's my bulldozer gone? My Site Modifiers tool, this one here. So the Site Modifier tool will create a site modifier. We can create a grade limits, I'll get into that, a contour, a pad with retaining edge. So the couple of things that we might do, pad with retaining edge might work. This is what you're talking about, I think, Richard, the retaining edge, which I sometimes like and sometimes don't like. And so I'll go through some of those settings. This is a spoil pile and this is a texture bed mode. So I'd like to look at perhaps the contour mode and this pad mode. So first of all, Richard, sorry, Scott. First of all, Scott, let's just draw your wine cellar, and we'll go yes to that. And here's my wine cellar, and I'm going to change this to an elevation. Where's my elevation? Elevation here. Let's make that 30 feet, because I know that 30 feet will be okay. And this is my house. So at 30 feet, when I update my site model, and what do we want to see? 3D, we want to see 2D contour smooth. We want to see proposed and existing. And 3D, we want to see proposed only. And you can see it there. It's created a hole. But what you might notice, Scott, is that when it created the hole, it didn't limit the amount of cut for that hole. So what we really wanted was a pretty steep side. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to change this to a pad with retaining edge. Let's update my site model. And it hasn't changed because what we do need to do with this pad with retaining edge is to make some changes to it. Here, let's just go to here. It's a pad with retaining edge, and I'm going to go send to surface. So let's go landmark, send to surface. I think I can right click on it and go send to surface as well. Is there a send to surface? Oh, it was there, wasn't it? Send to surface there. So what do we want? We want to elevate the retaining edge or fit the retaining edge or elevate the pad. I'm going to go to fit the retaining edge, and it should give me the opportunity to send this retaining edge to the boundary, to the edge of my site model. So I didn't do that. Send. So it's a pad with retaining edge. That's correct. Elevation 30, slope definition 0. And I want that to have the retaining edge on it, and it's not showing up. So landmark, send to surface. I want to fit the retaining edge. Now, normally it asks me which edge to send it to. So since it's failing to do what I want, I'm going to do what we talked about, Richard, some time ago, and that is I'm going to create a site modifier around it to be a grade limit. A grade limit will limit the extent of my cut. So that's a grade limit. So when we go update this, we should end up with that just fitting. So, Scott, let's talk about some rules. Rule number 1 is you can't have a cave. And what that means is that you can't put a site modifier like a cellar, wine cellar. It can't actually go under the site. We can't make a hole underground. So that's number 1. If you want to put a wine cellar in the lawn and have lawn on top of it, I'm afraid you're going to have to do 2 bits. One is you're going to have to make the hole for the wine cellar and the edges. And the other thing you're going to have to do is to put a form on top of it to close off that site. Now, an easy way to do that would be to do something like make a copy of the site model and shorten it so it matches exactly. So let me go back to your original question, Scott. You want wine cellars. Okay. Your wine cellar's off to the side, so there's no house over it. That's cool. So I think that looks at the basic strategy, that you can just create something that's a site modifier. I'm going to delete these parts again. So what you can't do is you can't make, so this is my grade limits here. If I make this grade limits go over my site modifier, like this one, and I update, I start to get error messages. These error messages are telling me that the pad intersects the grade limits modifier. You're not allowed to do that. Now I know that Vectorworks does it because it works, but sometimes the results in 3D are not what you expect. They can come out a little weird. So for example, in this case here, you can actually see that my pad modifier is going underground. It's actually going under the slope here, and it's hiding part of it's under the ground, so it's not correct. So Vectorworks doesn't like those parts, and it won't do them effectively. So that's get rid of that. Let's update this again. Update. So Richard, you wanted to look at the various types. So let's go back to our site modifier tool. The contour is a really easy one to use, especially if you use this one here with the snap to contour elevation. So I've got some contours here. This one's at 40 feet. So I should be able to click on that one. Then I can start to move these around. Now, what should happen if we go and update this, I'm just going to check to make sure it's updated, and my site modifier, because what should happen is you can see, I don't know if you noticed that one there went red. We're looking for these to go slightly red so that we can then use those to link to, and then what Vectorworks will do is it'll measure the angle of that, or the elevation of that contour, and it'll set this modifier at exactly the same contour. You can see here it's set it to 40 feet because I started on that 40 feet one. And this one, it's measured the edge of that contour, and if I make some contour lines like that and finish, that one should be at, I forget what I made it, something like 38 feet. That's cool. So let's update this site model and see what we get. And you'll notice that I'm showing both proposed and existing. Let's show proposed only. So it's a little confused. Here's my 40 contour line here, and you'll notice that even the contours way back here have been affected. And they've been affected because I haven't created a grade limit. So I haven't said limit my changes to this area. So I need to go back and I need to put in a grade limits. So my grade limits needs to go around this area that I want to be affected, and through this area that I also want to be affected. Now, the closer I make these to my original shape, the steeper the batter will be, the steeper the edge will be. Where did we start? Over here somewhere. And let's update again. Right-click, update. Now you can see that I've changed the amount that I've been affected by just to where my grade limits is. If we look at this in 3D, you should see that it's reasonably steep. So Richard, I've got a reasonably steep batter on this edge and on that edge. So some landscapers like this contour mode because this is how they often think. They think about changing the contours more than changing other things. Is it possible to do this some other way? Absolutely. If we right-click and we choose, where's it gone? Edit proposed site model contours. I can actually look at, so these are the 3D contours of my site model. So I can actually double click on one of these and I can move it. So this is a 2D part, and what I can do is might want to change these to more Bezier type shapes. Let's go and exit. And I think I might need to update. Do I update? So why didn't it change? Because of the way Vectorworks calculates the shapes. So it calculates them not based on the line of the curve of the polyline, but it calculates them based on the points of the vertices. So the more vertices you put in, the smoother the lines become. And now I have chosen smoothed. If I choose them unsmoothed, you'll see that some of them get steeper, but if we smooth them, it tries to smooth them out. So Scott, you said that you've got a cave, so you're going to have to copy the site model and place it over the cave. And one of the ways of doing that, placing it over the cave, is to duplicate the site model. There's a quick way to do it. If you, let me just go back to my Vectorworks preferences. Allow option and click duplication, or on a Windows machine it's called allow control click in place duplication. So if I do that, I can go option key click. I've now got a copy of my site model. It's a completely separate one. And what I would suggest is use the site model crop, delete that shape, draw a rectangle to represent the shape of your cellar, exit the site model. So what I should have is two site models. And there you can see the two site models. And this, the one at the bottom, you just change the bottom of that to represent. So if we go to the site model settings, we'll change the minimum elevation here to, what was it, 38 feet, I think was one of the amounts we wanted. And you can see you end up with just a tiny little piece of site model. So let's just pull that over there. So we should end up with two site models, Scott. You can see the two site models. So if you made that one, it could sit as a lid on top of your wine cellar. It's not perfect, but Vectorworks won't do a cave for you, so I don't know what else to do. We've got, so that takes care of Scott. So Richard, you wanted to talk about the various site modifier modes. I've got a real challenge using the retaining edge. It doesn't work for me in a lot of cases. Particularly if you're doing anything to do with the structure of the house or the architectural parts, where you've got several site modifiers close to each other that represent the different underside of the house structure. So if you're doing a basement and there's two different levels to the basement, don't use site modifier with retaining edge, just use a pad, because a pad works really well. I quite often make a pad by drawing by tracing around the shape of the house or the shape of my structure. Now you notice I've got these two just separated by a tiny little bit. So we select those two, then we're going to go right click. I'm going to create objects from shapes, and I'm going to make these into site modifiers, which is down the bottom. So I'm going to turn off the Show Properties dialog box. I'm going to delete the source shape so those rectangles disappear. And I'm left with two site modifiers. Now these two are both at the moment grade limits. So I'm going to change those to pad. Let's start off pad with retaining edge and see if we can make that pad with retaining edge work. So pad with retaining edge, the elevation of these, 38 feet. And I'll delete these other site modifiers that I've got. Now sometimes I have trouble deleting or selecting a site modifier. You can see there that when I click, it picks up the site model. If I click here, it's picking up the site model. If I J-click, hold down the J key and click, you can see it actually picks up the dialog box with the select multiple, select coincident objects. And you can see there I can choose the site model or the site modifier. And now I can delete that site modifier. So sometimes when you click, it's easy. I can get the site modifier that way, and I can get it that way. And so once I've told Vectorworks I'm looking for the site modifiers, it seems to be that much easier to go and get them. Let's update my site model again. Cool. So these two objects here, they're at 38 feet. And they should create some sort of hole. There they are there. Those are pads with retaining edge. Let's have a look. So it's pad with retaining edge, and the slope definition is none. And let's change the slope definition. The slope definition will be the across here. So is that right? 38 feet, yeah, proposed. That's weird because they're going all the way to the ground. Okay, so let's select that and that. Pad with retaining edge. Let's make sure that we've got here center surface. Elevate the retaining edge. choose to elevate the vertices to meet the site model surface. That's what we want. Okay. Now that should have lifted up the edges. They should have come up high. Now if I update this again, it's still not working. There's something going wrong with that retaining edge, because they're at the right elevation. But what I was expecting to find is when I do the lift, the retaining edge, I'm supposed to get a dialog box that says to me, do you want to go to the proposed site model or the existing one? So I'm going to see if I do this one again. Let's go center surface again. There should be a, what's that? That's my site modifier. That's my pad with retaining edge. I appear to have two of them. Okay, let's not get rid of this. Let's keep those two. Let's send those to the surface, see if that works. Send to surface. And I don't know why I've got two of them. You can see I've got that one and that one. And now I think I've deleted my retaining edges. So what's that? Yeah, because normally those retaining edges, yeah, I thought so. So normally those retaining edges elevate to the site model, which is weird. I don't know if anyone noticed, but I've actually got two of them. I've got one here and one there, and every time I've tried to do it. So I'm going to change those from pad with retaining edge to pad, and this should have the right 38 feet. That's 38 feet, isn't it? 38 feet there. Now my site model, I hope, isn't at the wrong elevation. Geometry lowest, I think I've accidentally moved this up. That's better. That explains quite a lot. Okay, so those are my pads. That one, so again, J-click, site modifier, and that one. Now let's try this. Send to surface. Pad with retaining edge. Send to surface. Elevate. Okay, so there was a slight change there. They slightly elevated. Let's update this again. And there they are. So there's a slight part here. And so Richard, one of the things I sometimes find with these is that you end up, if you send these to the surface of the site model, you sometimes end up with these pads, putting a line between them. So when I've got two of them like that, what I tend to do, I select that one and this one. What I tend to do with these is to turn them into pads only and put a site modifier around them. So the challenge we've got is how do we get, Richard, how do we get those site modifiers to give me exactly what I want in terms of, I want a really tight site to those. We're going to make this 36 feet. So I'm going to use my offset tool. I'm going to offset a copy, and I'm going to offset a copy by 12 inches. I've got two of them. I'm going to right click and choose, select them both, add surface, join those two together, and then change those from a pad to a grade limits. Now grade limits can go around several pads. So when I then update this one, I should end up with two different pads and the hole that I want. Like that. And I can then select individual pad modifiers, that one, and that one can be at 38 feet. Let's update. right click and update. So I can have different pads of different heights in the same grade limit. So if you want to make steps, I've done one recently where I made terracing down a hill, so I did that. Someone's asked, is the modifier can be touching each other? They can't, you can't touch modifiers together. I don't know if you noticed, but mine ever so slightly were apart. If they exactly touch, you'll get an error message, even if they just touch. So here, let me just go back to that. I want to, so J click again, so I select my site modifier. I want to just touch those two together so they actually touch. Let's update my site model. And I've got an error message here because they actually touch. You can't have them actually touching. How do we move that? Now I work in millimeters where I live. So what I often do is offset them by a millimeter, which seems to work. So J click on that one. And what I'll often do is I'll offset this by a millimeter, which is a 1/25th of an inch, which is almost nothing. So 1 millimeter. Okay, so you can just see it, but when you zoom out, it looks like they touch, but they don't. And that'll be enough to stop the error message. I would also be interested in Richard's question on site modifiers. So Rod, is there a quick way to enter minimal site data without a survey? I'm not sure if I just did that for you by doing that. But the easy way to do it, so there's a couple of ways to do it. So Rod, one way I'd suggest, I've got something going bing on me at the moment. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Do we have a site model? Do we have a site model we can bring in? I'm not sure I've got one on my desktop that I can bring in at the moment. I don't have one handy that I can bring in, but don't forget that you can use the stake object to quickly create a site model. If we use the stake object and you've got, so let's say for example we've imported an image from a council building. I've got council drawings that have got contours. I'm going to include as site model data. I'm going to use a cross. I just like a cross, you don't have to. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say my elevation is 30 feet. And then you can place a couple of these. Yeah, so that should be fine. So I can just place a couple of these. So those are 30 feet elevation. And then I can change this one to 34 feet elevation. So I've got another contour line at 34 feet. And I can place those again. One at the end. Let's just cheat and we'll just jump straight to 40 feet. 40 feet elevation, let's put some of those in. And then select all of those. Don't forget your select similar tool. Select all of those, landmark, create site model. And it will create a site model from those stake objects. There it is. If you want to add extra stakes to it, right click, recreate from source data is the option. It used to be called something different, but it's now called recreate from source data. And we go, oh, we've got some more information now. What we'd like to do is we'd like to put some in at 38 feet. So now what I can do is I can put some more contours in. I know that these ones are 38 feet around here. You can use copy and paste, so you can actually copy and paste in place. And it recreates your contours when you come out of that. So it's quite quick, I think, to build a site model if you've just got the limited data, and you can always add more information to it along the way. So what did we get up to? I started looking at Richard's question about the site modifiers. We looked at this one, we've looked at that one. We have looked at that one again, and I think we've looked at the grade limits. I'm actually amazed at how much you can build with a site modification just using the contour mode and the pad mode. Now there are other options you've got. So one of the things you can do with the site modifying is you can create pads from grade limits and you can create limits from pads. Sure, these are quite cool, and you can create a retaining wall site modifier. but I have found that although these do work, that some of the simple things like just creating contours work extremely well. So let me show you what I mean by the contours. I have a contour, I want to create a contour. I'm going to use that contour mode, can use the magnet one again. I want to use this contour here, and sometimes what I do is I update it to make sure it works, make sure it finds that contour. So I'm going to create a contour that goes around here, follows through here, comes back up here, and what I'm doing is I'm clicking and dragging. Okay, so that didn't find that elevation that I needed, so I need to physically move this to, I think that was 35 feet, elevation 35 feet. And now I need to create, don't forget you've got to create your grade limits. The other contour, I've done this before where I just do the contour out here and I just put in the heights that I want, or I just put that where I want that one to be. And that one must be 34 feet probably. 34 feet. And then we go update, we update the site model, and it should all be sweet. Now, if it's not changing, have a look to see what my 3D display is. Let's change it to proposed only. 3D display, proposed only. 2D contour smoothed, proposed only. And there's my updated one. Quick way to enter. Oh, Rod, sorry, never mind. So Richard, you got another question? A driveway, no curb to a street that has a cutout, a curb cut. I'm sorry, Richard, I don't understand what a curb cut is. So I've done the wine cellar. I've done that one. Someone's got a request. Oh, it's a long question. Use Vectorworks Architect, not Landmark, and of course Vectorworks Architect includes some Landmark tools. I wish there were a few more tools ported to Architect. The create retaining wall tools, I actually don't think you need them. If you build your, where's my site modifier? If you build your retaining wall site modifier to closely follow this curve, we'll make it go further away down here. This as well. Let's update that. So if we have a look at this in 3D, you'll notice that I've created quite a steep curve here. Now, if you want to make sure that it's really doing what you want, don't forget you can offset this line. So this is my grade, this is my site modifier. Let's do the offset tool. We'll offset this, we'll offset a copy, and we'll offset this by 2 inches. And we'll change the elevation of this to 37 feet. Let's update our site model. Now I've made the top edge just a little bit high, if you notice well. But that looks to me pretty much like a retaining wall. Now, I know it hasn't got the texture, I know it hasn't got an actual wall in front of it, but to modify the site, the tools you've got in Architect will do that. Barbara, you can hear me all right? Someone's just reported there's no sound.
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, I'll get rid of that. A street with a curb. So Richard, if I go back, you want to create a driveway with no curb to a street that has a curb. Oh, that should be reasonably straightforward, I think, Richard. I don't know if anyone else likes using this. There's a tool here called, where's the roadways? So roadway poly. So you'd have to do it in pieces, Richard. You know you can use the roadway poly. Can we get rid of all my site modifiers? Again, you see it doesn't want to select just those site modifier objects. X is that site modifier? Yep, let's get rid of that, get rid of that. I've got a couple of site modifiers here I think I need to get rid of. Let's get rid of those. Let's update this again. Okay, so Richard, we've got the roadway poly, which we could use. So there's my roadway poly. And I can send that to the surface of my site model. So I'm going to make the road paving width 9 feet wide. So I can send that to my site model. But you want another road coming in to join that one. I think that's what you're talking about, isn't it? You've got another roadway that comes down here and joins in here. Now, there's no roadway joining tools. That's not like wall tools where you can actually join them together. I can't do that. But what I can do is I can use this other road, which I quite like, which is called the custom curb. Because the custom curb road, I can draw from there to there as one custom curb, which is 9 feet. And I can draw another one, paving width 9 feet. That's not. Let's start that one again. Custom curb. Let's put in my width here as 9 feet. So I'm going to draw from there to there with one road, and from here to here with the next road. So I've got two different roads, Richard. You do need to do this in two different parts. So this one's got no curbs. And the way you do that with the custom curb is you use the polygon tool and you turn off the edges. And then this one is a completely separate one. And this one I can move these points. So I can actually move that point there to touch that edge. And I can move this corner back to touch that corner there. And then you've got the two coming together. Got to be careful with the elevations of these. The other thing I like about this, Richard, is that if you wanted to create a joint here where the two curbs come together, what you do is you start adding extra points to your custom curb. I don't want to add them that way. Let's undo that. I want to use corner vertices, so I've got my road comes out to there, and then I'll bring this corner back into here. I'd need something to line up with, and then I can turn off that curve at that end. No, I just want to turn it off at one edge. Oh. Okay, so let's go back to my reshape tool, turn off one edge. Now, clicking on that one should only turn off that edge there, but I did notice just before when I did it, it turns off all those edges, which is not what it's supposed to do. Oh, that's weird. Look, it's turning off parts that it shouldn't. Yeah, it's supposed to, Richard, it's supposed to turn off the bits that I'm clicking on, but it's obviously misbehaving for me today. I'll have to check my update, make sure I'm using the latest version. But the idea is supposed to be that if you've seen me do this before, that you can actually go through and make loads of changes to these. Have I got two there? Okay, let's see if that was it. It's still funny because I click on that corner and it's turning the other one off. What happens if I click on that one? Yeah, weird. And that road shouldn't, this is a custom curb again. And it says it's got no curbs, but they're obviously there. Unless I got two of them there. So, oh, that's my roadway poly. That's what's still there. Let's get rid of my roadway poly. So there we are, Richard. I've got that curb coming down and the other one not. I just don't know, Richard, why I'm not able to turn these off correctly. It could be that I need to update my Vectorworks. So what other questions do we have? Quick way, Rod, we've done the quick way. Scott, we've done your thing. We've done the can't touch each other. Site modifiers. Yep. So, Will, I think I've done your one. I think I've done all the questions. So no other questions now.
No,
Okay. So maybe I can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like we've done it all. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to let's see if I can open a file and have a play with it. I'm going to open up that file that gave us a problem just a minute ago. Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to give you guys some teaser ideas for next time. One of the things I'd like to give you a teaser about is when we come to create planting and we have plant tags, should we put the tags on the plants or should we put the tags in the annotation part of the viewport? So for example here, do we tag the plants, because these are different scales, this is a scale of 1 to 200, should I put the tags in this one? Or should I go to one of these plans and should I put the tags here, for example? It's a different scale, 1 to 100, so my tags will look different sizes. We do have one question. Somebody wants curved landscape steps down a hill. Richard's just trying to trick me to see if he can find where the limits of my knowledge are, I think. Have I got time for that one?
Sure. If it's
let's have a look. So Richard, you want curved landscape steps down a hill. Well, what curves do you want? I would wonder whether you shouldn't use something like, let's start with a rectangle, because the concept's going to be the same, Richard, whether it's a rectangle or whether it's curves. But you need to create the shape. Now, I'm not sure if you've got landscape, Richard. Let's do, oh, he wants them to snake down like a curve. He's just trying to have me on, isn't he? Aren't you, Richard? Okay, so here we are, Richard. Now, I'm not sure whether you've got, oh, you got designer, so you got hardscape. Okay, so let's do create objects from shapes. We're going to make this into a hardscape. Where's hardscape at the top? Hardscape. Let's delete the source objects. Let's give them a configuration. Let's draw 2D. That's fine. 3D. It's going to be a slab. Now, if you want to put a modifier in, a slab modifier bottom, it'll actually create a site modifier. I'm just going to have a slab because I'm not going to modify the site. The thickness is, what should we make it, Richard? About 4 inches thick, which is 100 millimeters. The border thickness, also 100 millimeters. There will be no border. And that should be a hardscape object. So what Richard wants to do is he wants to make these wiggle down the site like a snake. So we're going to start here. We're going to make them go like that. And like that. So I've got a couple of choices. I've got these 2 objects. One of the choices I've got, I'm going to start this one here, right? This middle is going to be on the end of that polyline. So I've got my line and my polyline. There's one here that we don't use very often called duplicate along a path. Where is it? Is it under model? Not extrude along a path. There's another one called duplicate along a path. Here it is, under edit. Duplicate along a path. So I've got a preview option so I can show you guys. So let's say, for example, we think we need 10 duplicates. We're going to make them tangent to the path. Let's preview that. I don't know, Richard, maybe my path's a bit ugly. Let's turn off the tangent to a path and let's do the preview again. And that's probably not quite what you wanted either, but because my path, I think my path's a bit nuts. But so Yep, there we are. So I've got all those, Richard. They all snake down. I should have left them all selected because that would have been quite handy. If I'd left them all selected, couldn't I also use end to surface? And shouldn't it send those to my site model for me? Is that what you wanted, Richard? You wanted those snaking down the... Now it sent the center of those to the surface, and what you might want to do is just move those down a little bit so they actually just stick into the ground a little bit. And if you turned on the site modifiers, it would actually cut those. And then you can look at these, Richard, and say, well, these, they're not even steps. Well, they're not even steps because the way I created it, they're all still selected. And there might be a modify command I can use, something like a line distributed in 3D. And it's the Z I want to distribute their centers. Did that work? It's thinking. Maybe that would work, Richard, to get them to distribute evenly. And then they definitely need to be site modifiers so that they cut and fill the ground in. And so those 10 hardscape objects, I'll have to make sure I put a slab modifier bottom to those. And then if I update the site model, it should be, should kind of work. So I think that would work. Yeah, of course, Richard wants them to summarize every step. I need to know how many steps I've got, Richard, and I'd also need to be careful about making them do that. The other way that I would suggest you look at, if you generally want to make a stair, if you generally want to make them to steps, I would look at the Stair Tool. Now, I don't know if anyone's looked at the Stair Tool, but there's a Stair Tool called the Custom Stair. I think we'll run out of time for that one, but the Custom Stair, Richard, you can turn off the stringers, leave the treads, and then draw the shape that you want. And you can also turn that into a site modifier later on if you want. So a couple of things for if we do this again, Barbara, a couple of questions I think that for people to think about. One was those, how do we tag the plants? Another one would be the custom stair, using the custom stair tool. I'd look at, can we count plants and put them into categories? How do we do that? How do we manage the plants? I haven't got a copy on my computer at the moment, but there's another one that I've done, which is once we've got site modifiers, how do we create a report where we can actually look at what each individual site modifier is doing for cut and fill calculations, which I thought would be quite useful.
Yeah, those are great ideas for next, appointment.
So good luck with that. So I think that there's still some things that we could look at, we could have some fun with. And if you guys are not using the data tag tool for tagging your plants, I think you're missing a great productivity trick. So till next time, thanks, Barbara.
These are all great tips. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Let me take the screen back.
Don't forget it. Just before you take the screen back, Barbara, yes. Don't forget, people, have a look at my YouTube channel. There's loads on my YouTube channel.
Yes, there's so much.
And my knowledge base, of course.
Yeah, please check
Thanks,
it out.
Scott enjoyed it. So Scott, if I don't know if you're on my knowledge base, but you should check it out. Certainly check out my YouTube channel. There's some great movies there. Just avoid the ones with scooters and bad drivers and stuff like that.
Those are the best. No, yeah, check it out.
Don't drive badly when I'm around.
Go. What are you doing? But if you're still here, I want to show you, remind you of our limited time promotion. Because before 2021 is released, you can purchase this.
I think I'm still showing my screen.
No, I think I'm showing my screen.
Okay, cool.
I'm pretty sure, hopefully, you can
yep,
see.
there it is. Yep, sorry.
Yeah,
Yep, my
I think you
computer's a
can
bit slow.
see our banner for the limited time promotion because you can purchase now Vectorworks 2020 and just save 25%. And then when the version 21 is released, you automatically get it for free. So pretty good deal. And remember, the Novedge is changing the way designers purchase 3D software, offering more choices, more freedom, best advice, and faster service. Check us out at novedge.com. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Bye-bye, Jonathan. Until next time.
Thanks, Barbara. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.